waiting for the opportune time to show 'em this new power of mine. When woods where we landed, we're 2 rows of next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. When woods where we landed, we're 2 rows of next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Our aim never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now. Waiting for the opportune time to show 'em this new power of mine. When woods where we landed, we're 2 rows of next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. When woods where we landed, we're 2 rows of next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. Our aim never disappoint, so we have coincidentally stumbled on a legendary. Wait until they see us now. Waiting for the opportune time to show 'em this new power of mine. When woods where we landed, we're 2 rows of next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory. When woods where we landed, we're 2 rows of next to be commended. We're taking down all of those who oppose. Greasy Grove will soon be upon us. Katie Hike, we're sitting on the battle bus. We're closing in and we'll soon claim victory.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Unplugged Unfiltered. I'm Brian Clements alongside Bob. Well, not technically alongside, but
alongside me tonight.
But joining Bob tonight for our episode, and your backup plan is killing you. That's the name of our episode. And the reality of it is, if you have a backup plan, you're probably not stuck because you're unlucky. You're stuck because part of you has already decided that this doesn't have to work.
Right.
Now, most people quietly retreat, calling it irresponsible, but backup plans feel smart. And I'm going to preface this with, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have some type of a backup plan, right? But you cannot let that backup plan become a hindrance to what you're trying to build. If you're hedging everything that you're doing as an entrepreneur on trying to build something, having this backup plan that is taking up time, resources, energy, that's just keeping you from really going in. So, Bob, what's your thought on having a backup plan? Is it truly killing you as an entrepreneur?
Well, I would say myself personally, I think most people, it gives them a sense of security, but it's really a false sense of security, because if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you got to decide to be all in. Right. I mean, yeah. That's just a game. And this goes back to, Brian, what you and I have talked about in many of the podcasts. Understand that not everybody is made to be an entrepreneur, and that's okay.
Absolutely.
Right? Not everybody is made to do it. Not everybody is comfortable with the level of risk that you have to take. And I think a lot of people have a backup plan because, again, they don't really want to fully commit to what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, and that's where it comes down to is as an entrepreneur, right? You know that you're going to have to shovel shit. You know that absolutely. You're going to have to do things, and you're going to have to pivot. And that's okay if you pivot. And that can be kind of seen as a backup plan, right? But
Yeah,
but
but
it's
really,
always still,
a pivot isn't a backup plan. I
yeah,
mean, a backup plan is, well, I'm going to work this part time, or I'm going to do this part time because I've got this other thing going over here. And then if this fails, haven't lost anything. Well, you never really committed anything. I think
yeah,
a pivot is just a smart part of doing business. Once you realize what you're doing is not working, it doesn't mean you abandon it, right? It means you have to look at it from a different angle and say, okay, because everybody in business is constantly pivoting,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And that's just smart business. So, if you change your strategy, that's not a backup plan as much. A backup plan to me is, I'm doing something else, or I'm going to do this part-time,
Yeah,
which is fine, I guess. But if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you just got to say, look, I believe in me. I believe in this. I believe in this is going to be, and you've got to eliminate, burn the bridges behind you so that you have to drive forward. And I think, to me, a backup plan is you've got all these bridges that are still behind you, and it never lets you get totally focused on what you've got to do, because in your mind, oh, well, if it fails, it wasn't me. I had a backup plan. Okay. So, I just think a backup plan for most entrepreneurs, no entrepreneur that I've ever met had a backup plan, Brian.
absolutely.
None of them. This was
Yeah,
it. This was where they were going.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I think to that point too is if you go, okay, I'm going to do this part time, I'm going to do this, just kind of on my free time and build this. You're not building a business; you're building a potentially profitable hobby.
You have a hobby,
okay.
Yeah.
But if you want to really build a business, if you want to take it to the next level, you've got to take that type of risk. But I think a lot of people go, well, I'm just being realistic, or Bob, I have a family, or I can't afford to fail. And those are all very realistic things. And honestly, I tell myself that all the time when it comes to Triton. It's like, well, I have a family and I have this, I can't afford to fail. But I don't say that because I have a backup plan. It goes, I'm going to push and do everything I have to do to get my business off the ground because I have a family and I can't afford to fail.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference. I can't afford to fail. To your point, Brian, I can't afford to fail. Therefore, I have a backup plan in case I fail. Or I can't afford to fail because I don't have a backup plan. Therefore, I can't afford to fail. And I think those are two very different, same words, but a very different thing, And I think, again, a lot of people that start businesses, again, not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur, and there's no shame in that.
Yeah,
none at all. Right? There's not everybody that is confident enough to take the risk it takes to be an entrepreneur. And most people that are entrepreneurs fail at being an entrepreneur the first time. But it doesn't mean they stop trying. So they go try something different. I think that's a piece of it. But your backup plan is your confidence.
Yeah.
Your backup plan is knowing that, hey, look, I can make this happen. I'm going to work my butt off. I'm going to do whatever I have to do. My backup plan is me. Right.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people that quote unquote have a backup plan, I go like, well, then why be in business? I mean, you've already set yourself up to fail, but and not necessarily set yourself up to fail, Brian, but you've given yourself an excuse.
Yeah.
Well, I tried it. I didn't want to risk this for my family. I mean, everybody that I know risk a lot to be an entrepreneur. And again, I never had a backup plan. I guess I could always go back into sales, but that's kind of what I was doing anyway. So it really was just kind of an extension of that. But I don't know, and I may be wrong. I mean, like I say, maybe out there, maybe the backup plan is a good idea. I just don't think it is. Like I say, I think again, if you're going to do something, you got to commit 100% to it. And if you got a backup plan, you're not committed 100%. You're just not.
Oh, absolutely.
If you've got a backup plan, you're not committed 100%. And to be successful as an entrepreneur in business, you got to be freaking committed 100%.
Well, and I think that's the real risk. I mean, the real risk isn't failing; it's never fully committing. Because if you don't fully commit to it, then it's going to fail. It creates opportunity for doubt and I would say the biggest hurdle that most entrepreneurs have to deal with is comfort. If you have a backup plan and it creates comfort, that stops so much forward momentum because you always go back to what's comfortable, right? And
as an entrepreneur, you're seldom comfortable.
And most entrepreneurs don't
even
like
if you're
being comfortable.
successful, even if you're successful, you're seldom comfortable.
Absolutely.
I talk to people, they go like, well, I don't know why I act this way because I really made it. And da-da. It's just because it's burned into your brain. There was a time that you hadn't made it. There was a time that you struggled. There was a time of this, but you drove forward. And those are embedded in your brain so deeply, even though that happened 50 years ago, you still can't get it out of your brain. I'm not going to let up because I never want to be there again. And I think, again, if you have a backup plan, right, you lose that focus, that passion, that drive that makes you have to go through and do it. So,
well, and it's that, a backup plan doesn't protect you from failure. It protects you from trying hard enough to win.
And that's say that again, because that's exactly right. It doesn't protect you from failure.
No, a backup plan doesn't protect you from failure. It protects you from trying hard enough to win.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
And I think, if you look at entrepreneurs or you look at, I'm going to use extreme athletes on here. So when I think of an extreme athlete, I think of, Travis Pastrana, JB Mooney. We'll use JB Mooney as a perfect example here. Right, it's built into him. He's never going to stop.
Most people on here do not know who he is.
JB Mooney is
probably the bull rider,
greatest bull rider of all times. He didn't get to where he was at because he was comfortable. No. And every time he got bucked off a bull, it didn't mean that he failed. But I guarantee that JB Mooney did not have a backup plan. And to this day, even though he's technically retired, he's constantly chasing that adrenaline rush, right? And for entrepreneurs, the living outside of the comfort zone, that's our adrenaline rush. I can guarantee that Cass and Mike, Gary Vaynerchuk, Mark Cuban, right? They're comfortable in their lives because of the money that they've made, but they're not comfortable in their head because they're constantly chasing that adrenaline rush for entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs are just built differently. And like you said, a lot of people just aren't, there's a lot of people who aren't made or built to be on a bull. And there's a lot of people who aren't made or built to build a business.
Yeah, I would not be built to get on a bull and ride a bull. But it doesn't mean I'm still not built. But, like you say, it's you find the things that you are capable of doing and you stretch them to the extreme. And I think that's the piece of it. Not everybody is built to be a bull rider. Anybody can get on a bull. Okay. It's staying on it for 8 seconds that becomes the difficult part.
Oh, absolutely.
But I go back again, but it's the thing. I think hopefully people that are listening to our podcast are people that are either wanting to be an entrepreneur or entrepreneurs. And my hope is if you're an entrepreneur and you're listening to this, that you understand that it's really, people say, what's your backup plan? I'm my backup plan. I don't have a backup plan. And some people are going to go, some people who are not entrepreneurs, who don't understand entrepreneurship, who have no concept of it, are going to go like, I can't believe you're doing this. You don't have a backup plan. I'm my backup plan, right?
Absolutely.
I don't have a backup plan because I don't need it, because I'm my backup plan. If this doesn't work, I'm going to pivot and I'm going to try something different, but I am going to be an entrepreneur. And again, people that aren't entrepreneurs cannot in their mind understand that concept. It's absolutely so foreign to them, and that's okay. I go back again. It's okay if you don't have that, if you're not wired, because this is a wiring thing for being entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
If you don't have that wiring, you're never going to be successful as an entrepreneur, because again, you don't have the tolerance for the risk that you have to take, and you're going to fail in the beginning. Yeah. Maybe not in the beginning, but there's going to be some failure along the way. But again, as an entrepreneur, you just understand, okay, not everything is going to go perfect. I'm going to fail. I'm going to make bad decisions, but it doesn't mean that I'm still not going to keep moving forward. I'm going to find a way. I'm going to pivot. I'm going to do something else, and it may be something totally different than what you're currently doing.
Yeah,
that could be a big pivot, but it doesn't matter, right? The United States is built for people, and most countries, if you're a capitalistic country, most countries, they're built for entrepreneurs. This is what their whole system is built, so that entrepreneurs, people that are entrepreneurs, can thrive.
Yeah,
but to thrive, you have to risk. Just part
absolutely. Of it. Well, and I think inside of business, I know in Triton, I mean, we have, I wouldn't say necessarily a backup plan, but we have contingency plans inside of our business. And and for the sake of what we're doing, just to make sure that we muddle the waters a little bit more, I call these our strategic backup plans, and we have these built into Triton substantially. But I think that there's two kind of, and we're going to use the word backup plan, but it's kind of a pivot strategy versus actual backup plan. But I think on a pivot strategy, the key to that is having something that is time boxed, right? It's I'm going to focus on this, but here is the time that is allotted to that, right? And it has to be conditional. It has to be designed to fund the main mission, and has to have a kill date, has to have a point where it's like, okay, this has done what it needed to do for the main mission. It's funded it. It's brought us resources. Maybe it's brought us knowledge. It's done something like that. Where again, we've pivoted maybe away from what our initial plan was. We've pivoted, but we created it as a conditional time box designed to fund or provide resources to the main mission. And then I think we get with a coward kind of backup plan that becomes something that's very open-ended, right? There's no kill date. It never expires. It really becomes something that's emotionally comforting and lets you avoid hard decisions. And I think that's where people, I don't want to say you don't have to have a backup plan, because as you're doing things in business, you need to create a pivot plan instead of a backup plan. But those pivot plans have to be planned in the conditional, designed to fund the main mission, has a kill date. If you do that right, it prevents you from running into issues. And we've talked about it. You know, you've done some work. Like you had one customer that you were going to do a big video kind of thing for. There's gonna be like worth $1 million, but you didn't hedge everything that you had in your business on that. You had a pivot plan just in case that fell through, right? It's if that falls through, your whole business doesn't fail. And I didn't have my whole business. I was very hopeful that was huge, but I did not build my whole business around this one event. You know, absolutely. And it did happen, you know, but had it not happened, I would have still been fine. I would not have had as much money, but I wasn't going to sacrifice my whole company for this one project. It was just one of those, if I could get it, it would be a nice project to get. But again, it's a little bit like, you know, we have talked a little bit about vision and mission, stuff like this, but if you have a backup plan, let's say that I'm going to continue to work my full-time job, you know, and I'm going to do this part-time at nights and on the weekends. That's going to be that. I have no problem with that, but I'm going to continue to work my full job for 12 months. Okay. And then at the end, this is your drop dead date. At the end of 12 months, right? At the end of 12 months, I am not going to keep doing my full-time job. This is going to be my full-time job. Because to your point, Brian, if you don't set a timeline, then you've kind of created a trap door that at any given point, you can go out the trap door and you're going to be fine. You go like, well, you know, I tried being an entrepreneur. You know, it really was, people just didn't like me. It gives you all these excuses. So I have no problem with somebody saying, hey, I've got a new idea and I'm going to work on the weekends and I'm going to work at nights, right? I'm going to keep doing my other job for 12 months. Yeah. And I'm going to work my butt like I've never worked before on my off hours, on the weekends and stuff. And I'm going to build this business. So it takes the income that I'm currently making and produces that for me. Absolutely. 12 months. At the end of 12 months, right, then I'm going to quit this job, you know, and this is going to be my full-time thing. So again, having that drop dead date, like you said, or having that timeline, then it's not so much a backup plan anymore, right? This is a part of your strategy to do it. I'm going to keep doing this part-time thing until it becomes profitable. It's never going to be profitable. Never. Absolutely. Yeah. You know, so you know, you're fooling yourself, and it's fun for you to go to talk during coffee breaks. Oh yeah, I've got a side business. No, you got a hobby, right? Absolutely. It's not making any money, right? You're playing like you're an entrepreneur. You are not an entrepreneur. You're just a hobbyist to do it. So I'm 100% with you on that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Well, I mean, and the thing is if your backup plan doesn't expire, it's not a plan. It's an escape hatch. Yeah, you know? Absolutely. And at any point I can pull the lever and go down the escape hatch. But and again, we're not knocking anybody who's an entrepreneur, right? If you're doing it on the side, building it up so that you can have a successful business, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of very successful entrepreneurs who have done that, but all of those had a end date to,
Exactly.
okay, I'm going to do this for 12 months. And at the end of 12 months, this is going to be my full-time thing. Or at the end of 6 months. In some businesses, it might be 3 years. There's certain businesses out there that, like, if you're developing software, right, that doesn't happen in 3 months. And it's one of those, okay, I'm going to give this a year for this, but you have to build that plan out and then say, this is the drop dead end date, and you've got to live by it. Or you got to kill the business. I mean, those are your two things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyways.
Yeah, and again, I think that's the hard part. Because like I say, first, depends upon what kind of business you're in and what you're developing. Like say, if you're developing software, it ain't going to be a 6-month plan.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to kind of look at that from that standpoint. I think the most important thing is to have a drop dead date on it.
Absolutely.
So whether, like you said, whether it's 6 months, I'm going to do this. I'm going to work my butt off for 6 months. No, I'm going to stop. I'm going to quit my other job. Announce that to the world. Right? Announce it to the world, right? Because now you're almost forced to make it successful because you've told everybody, hey, look, my goal is to lose 300 pounds in 6 months. And once you announce it to people, then you're almost committed to it, and that creates a whole other thing in your mind. So again, nothing wrong with keeping your job for some period of time, whether it's 6 months or a year, like say maybe even 3 years, but you still have to have a drop dead date on it. You have to say at 3 years, at 2 years, at 6 months, at a year, then I'm done, right?
Yeah.
And announce that to the world. I want to be an entrepreneur. I've always dreamed about doing this, and I'm going to keep working here for 6 months, or I'm going to keep working here for 12 months. But at the end of 12 months, right, I'm going to have this business going to where it supports me the way I need it to support you. And it may not support you 100%, but if you don't have the other job and you can work on this full time, you could probably quickly get to 100% on it. But yeah, I'm with you. I think, again, a lot of people that have backup plans do not have drop dead dates.
Absolutely.
Like you said, Brian, they've got an escape hatch. I can always go back. I can always escape through this. Yeah. And that's the stuff you got to get rid of.
Well, and I think that once you take that leap and once you really say, okay, this is what I'm committed to and this is what I'm going to do, I think that hunger really sharpens your decision making, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if I'm looking at a business, right, and I say, okay, this is great, I'll do it full time once it starts actually becoming profitable. Like my decision making on that's not going to be overly thought through.
No.
It's like, oh well, I could go to that show and I might make a little bit of money, but I just, but if it's one of those, I have to go to this show so I can pay my mortgage.
Absolutely.
I have to go to my show so I can buy more supplies, right? That changes your whole decision-making aspect of what you're doing. And I think that the constraints also create a lot of creativity because you have to think outside of the box when that is your only source of income.
Yes.
Or when you have everything hedged on that, I have to say, how do I sell myself better? How do I do this better? Where if you're doing it as a hobby, it goes, oh, that was not a great farmer's market. That was not a great show. It's fine. We'll get them next time, and then most of those people don't go out back and change anything. They go back to their 9-to-5 job. They forget about it until Friday night when they have to set up Saturday morning, and they haven't changed anything to become more creative. They haven't changed they haven't made any decisions that go, hey, this is going to be altering. This is going to make me better next week. And again, that is where that backup plan, I know kills so many businesses.
Well, and again, we're going to go back to the farmer's market and things like that. We had Steve Manglos on here a couple of weeks ago. Steve had a very successful fudge business. He pivoted many times in his doing different things, then going and doing shows and things like this. And that's not a backup plan. That's just smart, right? He's doing it, adding new things and like that. But, let's go back to the kind of the Liberty farmer's market that we talked about. If you're making your money off of farmers markets, okay, you're constantly saying, okay, how do I make more money off of the Liberty farmers market next week? Because I'm going to be here and the same people are going to be here. And again, if you say, well, if I do, that's great. But if not, I got a full-time job. I'm just going to go be at the Liberty farmers market because I think it's cool and doing it. If you're doing it to make money, right, you're constantly evaluating, okay, well, this is what I did last week. I sold this much honey. We'll go back to the people that sell honey. I sold this much honey, but I need to sell more honey. And so you got to go back and say, well, I don't want to do the same thing I did before, so it's, I think, constantly you're reevaluating what you're doing. I mean, I may hire a freaking monkey that does cymbals and dances if I can get more people in front of my, but I think that's a part of the creativity. I think if you've got a backup plan, I think, to your point, I think some of your creativity goes away for the simple fact that, oh, well, if I have a good week next week at farmer's market, that's great. If not, I'll go back and I'll tell everybody about, oh yeah, I'm in farmer's market. I'm an entrepreneur. And I go like, it's a hobby for you. It's not really an entrepreneurship thing like that. So,
well, and I think that's one thing when I think about the farmers market, right? And I think there's a lot of people who go, well, farmers markets are seasonal, right? And they are, right? They are very seasonal, but if you want to take it seriously, that's when you go, okay, well, I'm going to have 4 months or 5 months that I can't actually sell my product. That's why I have to work my main job. That then puts you back into those constraints or that spiral that a backup plan creates. Because if it was me, I'd say, how do I generate revenue with the products that I already have on the off season, right? There's never been easier to be online and
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the crazy part. Number one, if you've got 5 months to generate 12 months worth of revenue, number one, you better maximize that 5 months. And the other thing you better be thinking about is, well, these people, it may be too cold to be at the farmer's market. Everybody needs honey all the time. Yeah. So here's QR codes and stuff. And I reach out to people, I communicate to people, I market to people outside of the farmer's market, because people are still buying honey in November, December, and January and February, just not at the farmer's market because we're closed. But it doesn't mean that people aren't still buying it. So that goes back again to that creative thing. How do we take our customer base and expand that from a 5 month out of the year customer base to a 12 months out of your customer base? And absolutely. And again, if you didn't have anything to fall back up on, you would have to figure out some freaking way to do that, Yeah. And I think that's the power of really not having a backup plan. Your backup plan, this is my backup plan. Yeah. We sell honey. Okay. So, all right. And everybody, for the most part, likes honey. And people like to buy honey that was produced in their area because it's got all of the things in your area, the pollens and things like this that are healthy for you, instead of buying honey from, I don't know, Argentina or Australia. Yeah. I mean, that's where a lot of honey comes from, places that are not even here, and again, so when you're doing your honey stand, you're really communicating to people, hey, this is the benefits of buying honey that's produced locally. The bees are out there in the fields right next to you, and they're bringing in the stuff to the honey that makes it all good for you. So I don't know. I just think a backup plan is a weak strategy. Yeah. Not if you got a timeline. I'm with you. So if you got a timeline, at 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, I'm done and I'm doing this 100%. That to me, I'm okay with that. But if you say, well, I'm going to keep doing this, my other job until I can make enough money to switch over, you're never going to make enough money because you're not committed to it.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that the thing is, as an entrepreneur, you don't rise to your potential. You fall to the level of your opportunity, like opportunities.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Yeah, you don't rise. You fall down to where the lowest level of what your opportunity was. That's where you'll ultimately fall. And I agree with you. I think that's it. It's not backup plan doesn't lift you up. It gives you the ability to fall backwards, which is why they call it a backup plan, to your lowest level of opportunity. And I think that's 100%. I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, and so this is kind of a short episode for us tonight, but as we're kind of wrapping it up, one of the big things for me is, ask yourself this tonight. If my backup plan disappears tomorrow, would I finally take this seriously? And I think that if you're someone who wants to be an entrepreneur, I think Mark Cuban calls it a wantrepreneur, right? Yes. There's entrepreneurs and there's wantrepreneurs. But if your backup plan, let's say you were working a job, you got fired tomorrow, right? Am I going to take this business seriously, or am I going to scramble to try to find something else to fund my life? Right. If you say, I'm not going to take this seriously, if my backup plan fails tomorrow, then you're never going to be ready to take that step. Like, you've got to just dive in. You got to just shovel shit. And the other thing is when you're shoveling that shit, understand it's going to suck. It's going to stink. It's not going to be fun. And if you can't handle that, then find your 9 to 5 and understand that maybe you weren't meant to be an entrepreneur. So.
Well, and I think that's okay too. I go back again. It's, as I said before, not everybody can do it. Being an entrepreneur is a very difficult thing. It doesn't seem like that way because most of the entrepreneurs most people know are very successful. They didn't start that way. Okay. They went through hell and shoveled a lot of shit, going back to Cass and Mike stuff again, but again, I think having a backup plan that doesn't have a drop dead date on it, Brian, is suicide for an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and the thing is commitment feels reckless right up until it works. I mean, and that is what commitment feels reckless right up until it works. And once it works, then it makes everything, all of the sacrifices, all of the fear, everything that you were feeling, it makes it all worth it.
Well, and I go back again.
The problem with an entrepreneur is once that has happened, then you go, okay, well, let's try that again.
Yeah. Or everybody looks at you and you go like, oh my God, Brian's the luckiest SOB in the world. Like, yeah, I'm lucky. It took me 3 years to build this whole thing out. And I went through hell and back to do it.
Yeah.
No luck, just perseverance and commitment. And I think that's the other thing is sometimes people look at what people that are successful have done. They have no idea of the work and the commitment and the risk, right? And the sleepless nights that they put into that. And so people say, yeah, they got really lucky. That's just BS. They didn't get lucky. They worked their butts off and made it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. People who win the lottery get lucky.
Exactly.
Entrepreneurs. And I will say there's times out there as an entrepreneur. Don't let that sound like you're never going to get lucky as an entrepreneur. Sometimes things fall into your lap.
You get lucky, but it's because of stuff that you've worked on.
Yeah.
Right? It didn't just show up. Like a lottery ticket, I don't have people spending money on the lottery. It doesn't make any difference to me. I don't play the lottery because I want a better than 1 in 58 billion chance to win something. People say, yeah, but if you win it, and I go, yeah, it's a 1 in 58 billion chance. So, I don't have any problem with people playing it. But again, that shouldn't be your strategy for success.
Yeah.
You've got a better than 1 in 500 billion chance of succeeding as an entrepreneur, but it may not be, Brian, and it may not be on what you started with. I just think about people that started this, and next thing they did that pivot, and it's something totally different. But when they were working on that, they saw this other thing that actually made more sense, right? And they pivoted toward that. And you can say, well, they failed at that one thing. Well, kind of, but that one thing is what got them to pivot.
Yeah.
To get over here. And had they not have done that one thing and not had success with it, they would have never done that pivot. And the pivot is what made everything work. So seldom is there a failure as an entrepreneur. If you don't learn and pivot from it, then it is a failure. But most failures are just, that's kind of your next step forward.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, I mean, kind of going back to that, entrepreneurs getting lucky, I feel like there's a lot of times where in my business, people go, oh, well, you've gotten lucky to be, part of this, let's use Cass and Mike's celebration of entrepreneurs. They're like, oh, well, you're so lucky to be able to go do this. Well, it's not really luck. I spent 3 hours on a live podcast waiting for an opportunity to ask a question, which then led me into the ability to support Mike and Cass, which then gave me the ability to take the time out and do this. And if I had had a backup plan, none of that would have happened. So I think that you create your own lucky opportunities because you put yourself in the right place at the right time, because you're not held back by the constraints of your backup plan. And
again, I think as an entrepreneur, you're doing things other people aren't willing to go through and do. People say, well, I wouldn't spend 3 hours on it. Well, then you'd miss this incredible opportunity. Okay.
Yeah.
don't bitch to me because it never happened to you. You weren't persevering enough. You weren't committed enough to stay on there and do it. And I think, so don't be mad at me because I was willing to do things you weren't willing to do, because that's really what makes entrepreneurs successful. They're willing to do things other people simply are not willing to do. And in all things in life, that's how you make money.
Absolutely.
People talk about, gosh, the garbage men make so much money. And I go, well, hell, I don't want to do it. I'm happy to pay them whatever they want. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't care. They're willing to do something I don't want to do, whatever they can charge. God bless them. It's America. Rock and roll, go for it. So
absolutely. So, well, with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. But again, this was just kind of a quick, fun podcast for us tonight. And, I think I would love to hear everyone's thoughts on this podcast and say, do you feel like a backup plan is the cause for a lot of entrepreneurs failing, or do you feel like Bob and I are completely off base on this? And if you do comment that,
and if you feel that way, never ever be on our podcast again.
No, we'll just delete the comment and pretend it never happened.
Exactly. We'll delete the comment.
No, but with that, again, I'm excited to kind of see the responses from this, because even in the posting of this, scheduled podcast on LinkedIn, on Facebook, I actually got a lot of people who did not agree with the title and the description. And so it'd be interesting. So if you're watching this, let us know what your thoughts are. Shoot us a comment on that. But with that being said, and before we wrap this up, next week, you cannot miss next week's podcast. It's a name that we have talked about a lot. Something that they've created is in our podcast studio every single Wednesday night. And he is getting ready to release a brand new set of prints. So Chris Clements, not related at all, but Chris Clem Art, or Chris Clem House Art is his social media handle. He is going to be on with us next week. And again, I guarantee when you've watched the podcast, you've seen his art. He's got a brand new print coming out. He's got a massive live show that he's getting ready to do. And next week, he's going to be joining us on Unplugged, Unfiltered. And it's going to be such a great time hearing his story, hearing how he did not have a backup plan. He went full into what he's doing, and he's been able to do a lot of incredible things. And he's gotten so lucky, Bob, because he was just given so many opportunities. But the reality of it is he was in the right place at the right time, because he did not let the constraints of a backup plan prevent him from showing up where he needed to show up. And so super excited. It's going to be fun.
I would like to say, as a Clements, I wish he was a part of our family, because we need somebody in our family that has talent.
Yeah, exactly.
So if he's willing to come over to the dark side, we would love to have him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but it's going to be a fun podcast. It's called Love in Chaos, I believe. I'm like 99% sure that's what it's called. But it's going to be a fun, super, super fun podcast with him.
I love his artwork. I think he is so creative.
Yeah. So, anyways, so tune in next week. Make sure that you join us for that, because it's going to be fun. It's going to be knowing Chris. It's just going to be a super fun time, and hopefully he'll give us some teasers of this new potential release, and then we'll be able to all watch it on his live launch release show. So, and
you'll finally get to meet a Clements that has talent.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Exactly.
There's not one sitting in this room currently. Anyways.
Or in Oklahoma City.
So with that, we're going to let you guys go for the night. Again, quick, fun, to the point, a little controversial podcast. But next week is going to be very lighthearted. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we get to see truly what Chris has been working on for the last year. It's pretty cool what he's doing. And looking forward to it. So with that, Bob, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Enjoy Oklahoma City. And I am going to call it.
We've had a great power sports dealership down here I've been working with. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. So with that, everybody, you guys have a great night. We will catch you next week right here live on Unplugged, Unfiltered.
Thanks, everybody.
Never disappoint, so we have coincidental